Picture this. It's 3 a.m., and you're jolted awake by your phone buzzing like crazy on the nightstand. The screen lights up your dark condo, rain drumming against the windows like it's trying to drown out the world. But that call, it's your family, begging for help because your perfect little sister just got busted for embezzling from her own charity, the one she flaunted as an influencer queen. And here's the kicker. These are the same people who ghosted you during your darkest days, when you lost your job and were spiraling into a mental health nightmare. They cut you off cold, saying you were strong enough to handle it. Sound like a nightmare, or maybe your life. If you've ever felt that stab of betrayal from the ones who should have your back, smash that like button right now and drop a yes in the comments. Let's see how many of us are in this boat. What if I told you this wasn't just drama? It was the start of my revenge story, the kind where I finally took back what was mine. Stick around, because what happened next, it'll make you question everything about family loyalty. Pause. Have you been the invisible one in your crew? Comment below and hit subscribe if you're new here. Welcome to the fam. We've got stories that'll hit home harder than you think. All right, let's dive in. Just you and me chatting over coffee or whatever keeps you up at night. My name's Sophia Grant, and at 32, I thought I'd built a pretty solid life out here in Vancouver. Picture those misty mornings where the harbor fog rolls in like a blanket, and the skyline's all sleek high-rises mixed with that laid-back West Coast vibe coffee shops on every corner. Folks hustling in tech and marketing like me. I landed a gig as a senior exec at a boutique firm, crafting campaigns that turned startups into sensations. It wasn't easy. I clawed my way up from nothing, balancing late nights with the constant pull of family back east in Toronto. Our old neighborhood in Rosedale, straight out of a postcard, big colonial houses with manicured lawns. Summer barbecues where everyone pretends life's perfect. Dad, Victor, was a mid-level manager at a bank, always preaching about stability, while Mom, Elena, taught high school English, quoting Shakespeare like it solved everything. And then there was Liam, my younger sister by 4 years, the golden girl with her effortless charm, long blonde waves, and that Instagram feed full of sponsored trips and empowerment posts. She hit 200K followers by 25, turning her charity for underprivileged kids into a brand that screamed success. Me, I was the quiet grinder, the one who skipped parties to study, wired money home when Dad's car broke down, even helped Liam with her first viral post ideas. But deep down, it gnawed at me the way they'd beam at her selfies but brush off my promotions like, "That's nice, Soph, but Liam's got this big collab coming up." I remember staring at that phone, my thumb hovering over answer. My heart pounded, a mix of fury and that old, stupid hope. Why now? After they ignored my texts begging for support during my layoff 2 years back, I was crashing sleepless nights. Panic attacks that left me curled up on the bathroom floor, feeling like a failure for not bouncing back fast enough. I'd call Mom, voice shaking, and she'd say, "Honey, we're swamped with Liam's launch party. You'll figure it out, you always do." Dad even colder. "Toughen up. Life's not fair." Their coldness hit like ice water, making me question if I was even worth the effort. Liam. She sent one emoji heart, then nothing. It broke something in me. That realization they saw me as the strong one, disposable until they needed a fix. But as the phone kept ringing, a whisper in my head said, "This time, you hold the cards." Little did I know, this call was unraveling a deeper betrayal, one that would flip our whole messed up dynamic. But that's just the start of the storm. Okay, let's keep this rolling. Friend. That 3 a.m. call. It didn't just wake me up, it dragged me right back to the roots of all this mess. To really get why it stung so bad. Why I felt that familiar twist in my gut like I'd been punched. We gotta rewind to the beginning. Growing up in Toronto's Rosedale neighborhood wasn't some fairy tale. Even if it looked like one from the outside, imagine those big, tree-lined streets with houses that scream old money wraparound porches, gardens blooming in summer, and families like mine pretending everything's picture perfect. Dad, Victor, was always the steady type, crunching numbers at the bank downtown, coming home in his sensible sedan with that tired sigh like the weight of the world was on him. Mom, Elena, taught English at the local high school, the kind where she'd grade papers late into the night, but still find time to bake cookies for Liam's school events. And Liam, my little sister by 4 years, she was the star from day one. With her big blue eyes and that laugh that could light up a room, even as a toddler, she'd bat those lashes, and poof, whatever she wanted was hers. Me, I was the shadow, the one who faded into the background, always trying to earn my spot in the spotlight. I can still picture our backyard in summer, the kind you'd see in those feel-good Canadian family movies, barbecue smoke wafting, kids running through sprinklers. But zoom in on me at 8 years old, sitting on the porch steps, watching Liam unwrap a shiny new bike for her birthday. It was pink, with streamers on the handles, the exact one she'd pointed out in a catalog. Dad had worked overtime to afford it, and Mom clapped like it was the Olympics. Me, I'd saved my allowance for months to buy a little charm bracelet for her, something simple with a heart pendant. Liam glanced at it, said, "Cool," and tossed it aside to ride her bike. Later that night, when I asked Mom why I never got stuff like that, she just patted my head and said, "Sophia, you're the big sister, you understand these things. Liam needs the encouragement." Needs. It felt like a slap. Deep down, I wondered if I was just less fun, less pretty, less worthy. That moment stuck with me, like a splinter you can't dig out. It wasn't malice from them. Not really. Dad was stretched thin with bills. Mom exhausted from teaching hormonal teens, but their choices always tilted toward Liam. She was the delicate flower they watered, while I was the weed expected to grow on my own. Fast forward a bit, to when I was 12 and starting to see the patterns clear as day. School was my escape, those crisp fall mornings biking to class through High Park, leaves crunching under my tires, the air smelling like fresh rain and coffee from the vendors. I threw myself into it, acing tests, joining the debate club, even volunteering at the local library to stack books after hours. But home. It was like living in Liam's fan club. One winter, I remember prepping for a big science fair project, a model solar system I'd built from scratch, staying up late gluing planets while the house was quiet. I'd poured my heart into it, thinking maybe this time they'd show up. Cheer me on. The day of the fair, snow flurrying outside the gym windows. I scanned the crowd, parents huddled with hot cocoa, kids buzzing with excitement. No sign of Victor or Elena. Turns out, Liam had a minor sniffle from dance practice, and they decided to stay home just in case. I won second place, a little ribbon I pinned to my coat, but riding the bus home alone, tears freezing on my cheeks. I felt that hollow ache. Why was her cold more important than my win? Dad later mumbled something about priorities. But his eyes were on Liam. Tucked under a blanket with hot chocolate, Mom added, "You're so independent. Soph, we knew you'd handle it." Independent. It was code for forgotten. That night, lying in bed staring at the ceiling glow stars I'd stuck up myself, I promised I'd never need them like that again. But damn, It hurt feeling like the backup kid, the one who only mattered when convenient. By high school, the favoritism had layers, like an onion that made you cry the more you peeled it. Liam was blooming into this social butterfly cheer squad, homecoming queen vibes, her room plastered with posters of pop stars and that ever-growing collection of makeup palettes Mom bought her to boost confidence. Me, I worked weekends at a coffee shop near Yonge Street, the smell of espresso clinging to my clothes, saving every tip for college apps. I'd come home exhausted, arms aching from steaming milk, only to hear Dad bragging about Liam's latest viral TikTok dance. One Christmas, picture the living room all lit up with twinkling lights, snow blanketing the windows like a holiday card. We opened gifts under the tree. Liam got a new laptop for her content creation, something she'd hinted at for weeks. My envelope, a $50 gift card to the bookstore, with a note saying, "For your studies, you're practical like that." Practical. It felt like a dig, like they saw me as the boring one, the fixer, not the dreamer. Inside, I seethed. Why did Liam get the shiny tools to chase her passions? While I scraped by, but I smiled, hugged them, because that's what I did, swallowed the bitterness to keep the peace. Looking back, that's where Liam's spending habits started showing cracks. She'd blow through allowance on trendy clothes, hinting at Dad for more, and he'd cave, saying, "She's got that spark." Spark. It was foreshadowing her future mess, that endless need for more, but back then, it just made me feel small. If you're still with me, and hey, if this hits close to home, quick poll. Have you ever been the one prioritized last in your family? Comment yes or no below. It'd mean a lot to know I'm not alone in this. Anyway, those years shaped me into who I am. The grinder who moved to Vancouver for a fresh start, trading Toronto's humid summers for rainy hikes in Stanley Park. But they also planted that seed of doubt, making me question if I'd ever be enough. And as that 3 a.m. call echoed in my ears, all those memories flooded back, reminding me why saying yes to helping Liam felt like betraying myself. But what came next? It exposed cracks I never knew were there. So, picking up from those childhood flashbacks that hit me like a freight train during that late-night call, yeah, they weren't just old wounds. They were the foundation for everything that came next. As I grew up and chased my own path out here in Vancouver, I kept thinking I could outrun that feeling of being second best. Spoiler, I couldn't. Not at first. Let me walk you through how it all built up. The sacrifices that felt like they were carving pieces out of me, and how the family's indifference turned from a simmer to a full boil. It's the kind of stuff that makes you nod along if you've ever poured your soul into something or someone only to get zilch in return. By the time I hit my mid-20s, I'd packed my bags and headed west, trading Toronto's brutal winters for Vancouver's endless drizzle and that fresh ocean air that hits you like a reset button. Picture me in my first tiny apartment downtown, a shoebox with a view of the harbor cranes and seagulls wheeling overhead, the sound of ferries honking in the distance. I landed an entry-level marketing job at a firm specializing in digital campaigns, the kind where you're glued to your screen pitching ideas to eco-brands or tech startups. It was grind city early mornings fueled by Tim Hortons coffee, yeah. I kept that Canadian habit, late nights tweaking ad copy under the glow of my laptop, but I loved it. Felt like I was building something real, something mine, back home. Though the pull never stopped. Dad would call about just a little help with bills after he co-signed Liam's first car loan. She'd crashed her old one joyriding with friends, and I'd wire the money, dipping into my savings. "You're doing so well out there, Soph," he'd say, like it was a compliment. Inside, I'd think. Yeah, because I have to. No one's bailing me out. It wasn't just cash, it was time. 2. I'd spend weekends ghostwriting Liam's Instagram captions for her empowerment posts, making her sound deep and relatable, all while my own social life was non-existent. Why? Because family. Right, that's what they drilled into me. Blood first. Even if it leaves you bleeding, as the years ticked by, those sacrifices piled up like unpaid bills. I climbed the ladder at work, snagging a senior role where I led teams on big campaigns, think launching apps that went viral, coordinating photo shoots in Stanley Park with models posing against the totem poles, the salty breeze messing up everyone's hair. But success came with strings. My relationship with my then boyfriend, Alex, started cracking under the pressure. He was a graphic designer, chill and creative, the type who'd surprise me with picnics on Kitsilano Beach, waves crashing as we shared sushi rolls. We'd talk about settling down, maybe a dog or even kids someday, but family demands kept intruding. One spring, I remember canceling a weekend getaway to Whistler Fresh Powder on the slopes. Cozy cabin vibes to fly back east because Liam's big collab fell through, and she was devastated. Mom begged me, Sophia, she looks up to you, just talk her through it. So I did, spending hours on the phone coaching her on rebranding while Alex paced our living room, frustrated. When's it your turn? Soph, he'd ask, his voice soft but edged with hurt. In my head, I'd replay those childhood slights. If I don't step up, who will I'm the reliable one? But it wore on us, nights turning into arguments, me defending my family like it was a reflex. Alex wanted more from me, more presence, but I was stretched thin, always the fixer, deep down. I knew it was toxic, that their coldness had taught me to overgive just to feel needed. And Liam, she thrived on it, posting glamorous shots from sponsored trips to Banff, her feed a highlight reel of the life they funded indirectly through my silence. The escalation hit when my world started crumbling for real, about 2 years before that infamous call. The firm downsized picture the office buzz turning to whispers. HR calling people in one by one like a bad reality show. I got the axe, along with half my team. Suddenly, no more steady paycheck, just a severance check that barely covered rent on my upgraded condo overlooking English Bay, where I'd watch sailboats bob like they had no worries. The stress snowballed into full-blown anxiety, sleepless nights staring at the ceiling, heart racing like I'd chugged too much caffeine. That constant knot in my stomach making even simple things like grocery shopping at Granville Island feel overwhelming. I'd reach out to family, voicemails spilling my guts. Hey, things are rough here. Could use some advice. Or just to talk. Dad's response. A quick text. Chin up, kid. Liam's dealing with a troll storm on her page. Call you later. Later never came. Mom was worse, dismissing it during our rare chats. You're tough, Sophia. Remember how you handled high school alone? This is just a bump. Bump. It felt like a crater. Their motives were clear in hindsight. Dad was retiring soon, scared of his own finances, so he funneled energy into Liam's sure-thing influencer gig. Mom. She lived vicariously through Liam's glamour, posting her daughter's pics on Facebook like trophies. Me, I was the afterthought, the one they assumed would figure it out because admitting I needed help would crack their perfect facade. It made me resent them. That cold logic where Liam's online drama trumped my real-life spiral, and oh man, the marriage tension Alex and I hit rock bottom around then. We'd been together 5 years, sharing lazy Sundays hiking Grouse Mountain, sweat dripping as we conquered the grind, rewarding ourselves with craft beer at the top. But my family's pull turned me into a ghost always on calls, wiring money for Liam's emergency camera gear, Alex would say. Soph, they're using you. His eyes pleading over dinner at a cozy spot in Gastown. Fairy lights twinkling above us, I'd snap back, defending them out of habit, but inside doubt crept in. Am I repeating the pattern, sacrificing my happiness for theirs? One night, after I skipped our anniversary to help Liam edit a video, her pleading voice on speaker. Sis, you're the best at this. Alex packed a bag. I love you, but I can't compete with ghosts, he said. Docker slamming like a final punctuation. The emptiness hit hard, echoing in our half-empty apartment, rain streaking the windows like tears. I blamed myself at first, if I'd set boundaries sooner. But slowly, the anger shifted to them. Their indifference wasn't just lazy, it was calculated, keeping Liam on her pedestal while I crumbled. Subtle signs of Liam's future mess were there too. Her charity posts felt off, with vague updates on funds. But I'd ignore it, too busy holding everything together. If any of this rings a bell, like, have you ever felt that slow burn of giving everything and getting crumbs? I'd love to hear in the comments. Seriously, drop your thoughts. It helps knowing we're not solo in this crap. Anyway, those sacrifices, they weren't sustainable. I didn't know it yet, but they were leading straight to a breaking point that would shatter the illusion for good. But then everything came crashing down in one brutal day. Yeah, that breaking point I mentioned. It didn't creep up slow. It slammed into me like a truck on the Sea-to-Sky highway during rush hour. One brutal day that turned all those piled-up sacrifices into a full-on avalanche. Let me paint the picture for you, friend, because this is where the family's betrayal hit its absolute peak, and honestly, reliving it still gives me chills. It was a foggy Tuesday in Vancouver, the kind where the mist hangs low over the water like a bad mood you can't shake. I'd been scraping by after the layoff, piecing together freelance gigs, think cold calling clients from my cluttered home office. The harbor view mocking me through rain-streaked windows as I pitched campaigns I barely believed in. My mental health was in freefall panic attacks that left me gasping on the couch, nights where sleep was a joke, and that voice in my head whispering, "You're not enough, never were." I'd hit a wall, and in a moment of pure desperation, I did something stupid. Pills nothing dramatic like in the movies, just enough to numb the noise. But it went wrong. Woke up in the ER at Vancouver General, monitors beeping like accusatory fingers, the sterile white walls closing in, that antiseptic smell burning my nose, my wrists bandaged from a clumsy attempt that scared me more than anything. Alone. Completely. Gut-wrenchingly alone. I reached for my phone on the bedside table, shaky hands. IV tugging at my arm, and dialed Mom first. "Please pick up," I whispered to myself. Tears blurring the screen. It rang and rang. Voicemail. "Mom, it's me. I'm in the hospital. I need you." Nothing. Then Dad straight to voicemail too. His gruff message about leave a number. Even Liam, who I'd bailed out 100 times, her phone buzzed once before she sent me to do not disturb. The rejection landed like a brick to the chest. Why? Because that same day, Liam had her big influencer event, a charity gala, at a swanky Toronto venue, all glitz and selfies under chandeliers, posted live on her stories. I scrolled through them later, propped up in that stiff hospital bed, the fluorescent lights buzzing overhead like a swarm of doubts. There they were, Mom in a sparkly dress, beaming as Liam posed with sponsors, Dad clapping during her speech about giving back. His tie loosened like he was having the time of his life. They chose that fake smiles and champagne toast over my crisis. From their side, I can almost hear the excuses they probably told themselves, Mom thinking. Sophia's tough. She'll bounce back like always. Liam needs this boost for her career. Dad rationalizing. We've got flights booked. Can't cancel now. Soph knows life's about priorities. Their coldness wasn't new, but in that moment, it felt deliberate, like they'd written me off long ago to protect their golden girl's shine. It made my blood boil. That selfishness masked as family first, but only for the one who made them look good. The emotional peak hit when a nurse, this kind woman named Carla with warm brown eyes and a no-nonsense ponytail, checked on me. She sat on the edge of the bed, her scrubs rustling, and held my hand without pity, just real compassion. Hey, you're not alone in this, she said softly, her voice cutting through the beeps and distant hallway chatter. People let us down, but that doesn't mean you're broken. It was the first kindness I'd felt in weeks, a stranger stepping in where my blood should have, but inside I was a storm rage at my family's indifference bubbling up like lava, mixed with this raw, ugly surprise that they'd sink this low. How could they not even text back, I'd think. Staring at the unanswered messages glowing on my screen, in ER, please call. No dots, no read receipts. Their motivations crystallized for me, then Dad's fear of vulnerability. He'd grown up poor, always preaching self-reliance. So admitting I needed help would crack his tough guy shell. Mom's blind spot for Liam, living through her daughter's success to escape her own mundane life-grading essays, and Liam pure entitlement, too wrapped in her follower count to see beyond her feed. It wasn't hate. It was neglect born from their own baggage, but it hurt like hell, making me question if I was invisible or just not worth the effort. Lying there, IV drip cold in my vein, the room spinning a bit from the meds. I felt that peak of isolation like I was adrift in the harbor fog. No lighthouse in sight. From the family's perspective, pieced together later through guilty texts. They were too busy with the gala prep, Mom fussing over Liam's dress fittings, Dad networking with potential sponsors, all while my voicemails piled up unheard. We didn't know it was serious, Mom claimed eventually. But that was BS they chose not to know. It was the ultimate slap, amplifying every childhood slight into a roar. But in that loneliness, a tiny spark ignited. I don't have to take this anymore. Carla's words echoed, planting the seed of reaching out beyond them to friends, to therapy apps on my phone. If you've ever hit a low where family failed you big time, you get it, that mix of fury and clarity. Drop a quick thought in the comments if this resonates. Sometimes sharing eases the load. I thought that hospital bed was the end of me, the final crack. But I had no idea something even bigger was about to break wide open. That hospital bed wasn't the end. Friend, it was the fuse. Waking up the next morning, discharged with a handful of pamphlets on crisis hotlines and a prescription that felt like a Band-Aid on a bullet wound. I dragged myself back to my condo. The elevator ride up felt eternal, the mirrored walls throwing back my pale reflection, bags under my eyes like badges of defeat. I collapsed on the couch, staring at the harbor where boats bobbed indifferently. And that's when my phone exploded, not with family apologies, but notifications, ping after ping, texts from old Toronto friends, DMs from work acquaintances. Soph, you seeing this about Liam? My heart dropped. I opened the news app, and there it was splashed across every feed like a bad dream gone viral. Local influencer exposed embezzlement scandal rocks charity empire. Liam's face, all polished smiles from her latest post. Now under headlines screaming fraud, she'd been skimming donations from her Kids in Need fund, thousands funneled into personal shopping sprees, trips to Tofino beaches, even a down payment on a condo upgrade. The media circus was in full swing, reporters outside our family home in Rosedale, cameras flashing like lightning, neighbors peeking through curtains as Dad tried to shoo them away with that banker scowl. Mom's voice in a leaked audio clip, defending her, "It's a misunderstanding, Liam's heart is in the right place." But the evidence ironclad bank statements, whistleblower tips from her own assistant. The family was imploding publicly, their perfect facade crumbling like a sandcastle at high tide. I sat there, frozen on my couch with the morning light filtering through blinds, coffee forgotten and going cold on the table. Shock hit first like a wave crashing over me, salty and disorienting. This is what they've been hiding. Liam's charity had always seemed glossy, too perfect, but I'd chalked it up to her charm. Now, the pieces clicked all those times I'd wired money thinking it was for family emergencies, only for Liam to post about new designer bags. But then came the real gut punch, a forwarded email from an old family friend, Aunt Rita's neighbor who'd overheard too much at a barbecue. It was a chain from Dad to Mom. Dated months back, redirected the $50K gave from Grandma's trust to Liam's fund. She needs it to keep the momentum. Sophia's independent. She won't miss it. My inheritance. The one Grandma left specifically for me after her passing, whispering in her hospital bed about your future. Soph, don't let them dim your light. She'd seen the favoritism, tried to balance it with that nest egg for my dreams. They'd stolen it, assuming I'd handle it like always. The betrayal burned hot, righteous anger flooding in like fire through my veins. How dare they? I paced the living room, hardwood creaking under my feet, fists clenched as I replayed every dismissal. Dad's motive, fear retirement, looming. He saw Liam's brand as their golden ticket, a way to live big without admitting his own failures. Mom denial wrapped in love, blind to Liam's flaws because facing them meant facing her own regrets about a life stuck teaching the same Shakespeare plays year after year. And Liam greed, pure and simple. Her ego bloated from likes and sponsorships, turning charity into a personal ATM. Their coldness wasn't accidental, it was a choice. Protecting the fragile empire they'd built around her at my expense. The multi-twist kept unfolding like a bad thriller you can't pause. As the scandal trended, Liam fraud lighting up Twitter, memes mocking her empowerment quotes. I got a frantic voicemail from Dad. "Sophia, we need your PR magic. Fix this for the family." But before I could spiral, my colleague Mia texted, "Saw the news. Coffee, I can help strategize." We met at a cozy spot in Yaletown, steam rising from our lattes like secrets unfolding, the buzz of the cafe a stark contrast to my inner chaos. Mia. With her sharp bob and no BS attitude, she'd climbed from intern to partner. Much like me, leaned in. "This isn't just Liam's mess. It's yours to flip. Reclaim that inheritance legally. Set terms." Her words were a lifeline, urging me to see the opportunity in the wreckage. Sensory overload hit the bitter taste of espresso mirroring my rage. The chatter around us fading as I realized this chaos could be my turning point. From their end, the family's cover-up attempts were pathetic. Dad emailing sponsors to clarify, Mom posting vague support on Facebook, Liam going radio silent after a teary IG story begging for understanding. But the leaked email, it exposed their hypocrisy raw, making the public turn on them harder. Inside, I wrestled. Shock at the theft morphed into anger that fueled action, a decision bubbling up. No more free fixes. They face this. Or I walk. If you're glued to this and thinking, would I confront my family over something like a stolen inheritance? Man, I'd love to hear your take in the comments. Spill it. These stories get real when we share. Anyway, with Mia's push, I started digging lawyer calls, document hunts, and that's when the real fight began. But I thought the betrayal couldn't get worse. I was wrong. Something even bigger was lurking, ready to change everything. That filing, it was like flipping a switch, no going back. With Mia's nudge still echoing in my head from that Yaletown coffee shop, steam curling up like unresolved questions. I booked a flight to Toronto the next day. My hands shook as I packed, stuffing a suitcase with essentials and that old journal from childhood. Its pages crinkled like my nerves. The plane ride felt endless, clouds whipping by the window like accusations. My mind replaying the leaked email over and over, Dad's casual betrayal, Mom's silent sign-off, landing at Pearson. The familiar chill hit me, humid summer air, thick with exhaust, and that underlying buzz of the city. I rented a car and drove straight to Rosedale. The streets lined with those grand houses now feeling like a stage set for a showdown. Pulling up to our family home, the porch light flickered like it knew trouble was coming. Dad answered the door, his face gaunt under the hallway glow, tie askew like he'd been pacing. "Sophia," he muttered, stepping aside without a hug. Mom hovered in the kitchen doorway, apron smeared with what looked like frantic baking, her go-to stress reliever, while Liam sat at the dining table, scrolling her phone obsessively, her usual glow dimmed by puffy eyes and a hoodie pulled low. We gathered around that same oak table where we'd had 1,000 tense dinners, the wood scarred from years of unspoken grudges. The room smelled like fresh cookies mixed with desperation. Evening light slanting through lace curtains, casting long shadows that mirrored the divide between us. I laid it all out, no sugarcoating. "You stole my inheritance," I said, voice steady but my heart hammering like a drum solo. I slid the printed email across the table, watching their faces crumple. Dad's jaw tightened, his banker facade cracking as he stammered. It was for the family Liam's charity was supposed to pay off for all of us. All of us. That stung his motive laid bare, a desperate gamble on Liam's success to secure their retirement, blinded by fear of ending up like his own broke parents. Mom teared up, dabbing her eyes with a napkin. "We thought you were set. Soft, independent. Liam." She needed the push, needed her words, twisted the knife living through Liam's glamour to escape her own regrets. But at what cost? Liam finally looked up, her phone clattering down, voice small. "I didn't know about the trust fund, but I'm sorry, sis, for everything." It was half-hearted, laced with regret, but there a crack in her entitlement armor, maybe from the scandal's humiliation forcing her to face the mess she'd made. Not full redemption, but a start. She admitted the charity was more ego than heart, her followers dropping like flies. Their reactions a mix of defensiveness and dawning shame, Dad shifting blame to tough times, Mom pleading family unity, but I held firm. "No more. I'm filing to reclaim what's mine, and if you want my PR help to salvage this scandal, we all do therapy, real sessions, no dodging." The air thickened, silence broken only by the tick of the grandfather clock in the hall. They resisted at first, Dad storming off to the study, slamming the door like a punctuation on his pride, Mom whispering, "This will tear us apart." Liam nodded weakly, perhaps seeing her world shatter for the first time. But the legal papers I'd prepped with a Vancouver lawyer cold, factual pages outlining the theft forced their hand. We agreed to temporary no contact beyond therapy logistics, me heading back west while they stewed. That separation hit hard, a mix of relief and ache like ripping off a scab, painful but necessary. Back in Vancouver, I dove into recovery, leaning on a women's support group I'd found online after Mia's tip. Picture those Zoom calls from my living room, screen glowing with faces of strangers turned allies, a single mom from Seattle sharing her sibling rivalry scars, a career woman in Portland venting about parental favoritism. We'd laugh through tears, swapping stories over virtual coffee, the chat box buzzing with emojis and links to resources. One session, under the soft lamplight with rain pattering outside, I opened up about the inheritance. It wasn't just money, it was Grandma's way of saying I mattered. The group rallied advice on boundaries, virtual hugs that felt real. It was my chosen family, filling the void with genuine care. No strings, physically. I started small wins, morning walks along the seawall, waves lapping at the rocks, breathing in that salty air to clear the fog in my head. Emotionally, empowerment bloomed. Setting those limits wasn't revenge. It was self-respect. A shield I'd never had. Liam's partial apology lingered. A tiny redemption spark, she texted once. Therapy starts next week. Thanks for pushing. Not perfect, but it showed the scandal cracked her shell, forcing her to confront how our parents enabling fed her mess, Dad and Mom. Their reluctance stemmed from shame. Admitting fault meant dismantling the life they'd built on illusions. But in group chats, I saw my pain reflected, making me stronger, if setting boundaries after betrayal sounds familiar. What's one limit that changed things for you? Share. If you're up for it, these convos keep me going. In the next video, see how I rebuilt from the ground up. But for now, that confrontation. It was the first real breath I'd taken in years. That first real breath after the confrontation, it tasted like freedom. Friend, like stepping out onto the Vancouver seawall after a storm. The air crisp and salty, waves gently lapping at the rocks below. Months blurred by in a mix of therapy sessions and small victories. But looking back, it's clear that showdown wasn't just a fight, it was the doorway to rebuilding everything on my terms. Therapy started awkward, over Zoom from my sunlit living room, the screen splitting into boxes of familiar faces now strained with unease. Dad grumbled through the first few, arms crossed like he was defending a bad investment. Admitting his fear of failure had made him bet big on Liam's sure thing. I thought protecting her protected us all, he'd say, voice cracking under the therapist's gentle prods. Mom opened up slower, tears flowing as she confessed living through Liam's spotlight, hid her own unfulfilled dreams, teaching the same lessons year after year, never chasing that novel she always talked about writing. Liam. She showed glimmers of real change, logging off social media for weeks, her usual polish replaced by raw honesty. I got addicted to the likes, sis. Didn't see how it hurt you. It wasn't a fairy tale fix, no group hugs or instant harmony, but those sessions chipped away at the walls. We set rules. No more financial bailouts, equal check-ins, and apologies that stuck, like Dad mailing back Grandma's old locket from the trust fund era. A quiet nod to what he'd taken. The inheritance settlement came through after a tense court date in Toronto. Picture the stuffy downtown courtroom, fluorescent lights humming overhead, lawyers shuffling papers while I sat straight-backed, heart pounding but eyes steady. We didn't go full war. It was mediation. But I walked out with my $50K back, plus interest enough to wipe my debts and seed something new. Back in Vancouver, I poured it into launching my own PR consultancy, specializing in crisis management for women-led brands. Imagine my new office in a converted warehouse loft in Gastown, exposed brick walls, big windows framing the cobblestone streets below, the hum of street performers drifting up. I hired a small team, mentored young hustlers like the version of me who'd felt invisible, turning scandals into comebacks. Business boomed. A local startup hit by bad press, I'd craft their narrative, drawing from my own mess to make it authentic. Personally, I met Ethan at a networking event on Granville Island, him a laid-back photographer with that easy smile, capturing market scenes with his camera slung over his shoulder. Our first date was simple fish and chips by the water, seagulls squawking overhead, laughing about our worst family stories. He got it no pressure, just support, like walking hand in hand along the seawall at sunset, the sky painted orange and pink, waves whispering encouragement. No kids yet, but we adopted a scruffy rescue dog named Scout, his paws pattering on hardwood as we built a home that felt truly mine. The family ties shifted too, not perfect, but healthier. Holidays got civil last Christmas, back in Rosedale with snow blanketing the lawns like a fresh start. We shared a meal without the old undercurrents. Liam launched a smaller, honest blog about her recovery, admitting the fraud, focusing on real advocacy, and even asked for my advice without demanding. Dad retired quieter, volunteering at a local shelter, his way of making amends for the shortcuts he'd taken. Mom started that novel, pages stacking up on her desk, her calls now about my life, not just Liam's. It wasn't forgiveness overnight scars lingered, that ache when I remembered the hospital silence, but boundaries made space for peace. The lessons sunk deep. Self-respect isn't selfish, it's survival. Family isn't just blood, it's who chooses you back, who shows up without scorekeeping. And chosen family mine grew through that support group, now in-person meetups at cozy cafes, sharing laughs over lattes as we traded war stories and wins. One night, under string lights in a backyard gathering, a member hugged me, "You turned poison into power." It hit home now. I'm happier than ever. Waking up to Ethan's coffee brewing, Scout's tail wagging, the harbor sparkling like possibility. Looking ahead, it's all about that forward pull, the consultancy expanding, maybe a book on turning family drama into strength. But hey, if this journey's got you reflecting on your own triumphs, what's one win that came from setting a boundary? Toss it in the comments. I love reading them and might shout out a few next time. These stories remind us we're not alone. If this hit you where it counts, give it a like, drop your thoughts below, and hit subscribe for more real talk revenge stories like this. Thanks for hanging with me. You're the best part of this.